off the cuff with Cliff. Cliff is taking a walk right now because we kind of have a heavy episode, but I encourage you all to listen. I am honored to introduce my friend, Andrea Verdone, who is the founder of Infinite Love for Kids Fighting Cancer. Andrea, thank you for being here tonight.
Hello, thank you for having me, my dear friend.
So, can you give us a little background on how Infinite Love came to be?
Yes. So, in August of 2012, so a long time ago now, my almost 3-year-old daughter at the time, Natalie, was diagnosed with high-risk acute lymphoblastic leukemia. She fought for a little over 2 years, and a lot happened in that time. It was, one day you have your job, and at the time I was working in Manhattan. Didn't know that when I left my office that afternoon that I would never be returning.
Wow, so you never walked back into that office again?
Only to pack up my things about 5 months later.
Wow.
Yeah. And with that comes financial repercussions. Because when your child is diagnosed with a disease like cancer, the first thing they tell you is one parent needs to be home to care for your child. And that had to be me. There's no way I would have been able to live with myself if it wasn't me. But in doing so, my husband and I quickly realized, okay, we're going to have to sell our home to do
Yeah, because
this.
you had quite a career. I mean,
Yes.
You were working in the city. I'm sure you were making good money.
Yep.
I mean, in a split second, you're still reeling from this horrifying news.
Yep.
And then yet you still have to think of all the logistics.
Yeah, and that's a lot of things that, people don't tend to think about when they, have somebody who has a child who is diagnosed with whether it's cancer or another disease that has a similar effect, but it's financially devastating because in most households, both parents work,
Right.
And you live to that lifestyle of,
Mhm.
both your husband and your paychecks.
Yes.
So when Natalie was diagnosed, where we were living and just everything, we were like, we're not going to be able to continue doing this. So we had to sell our home and move.
Wow.
It ended up working out, and it ended up being that part of it ended up being a blessing.
Right.
Because we are where we were supposed to be. But it just sucks the way we had to get there.
The way you had to get there,
Yeah.
right? And you really were given no choice.
No,
right?
Not at that time.
No.
Not at all. Yeah.
And the other thing that people don't realize too is, I mean, let's say you are going into the city for treatment.
Yep.
There's the added expense of
Commuting
to the
Yep.
city back and forth, maybe hotel rooms
Oh,
overnight,
100%.
Eating out.
Yep.
Everyone needs to eat and sleep, right? So these are all added expenses that you wouldn't think about unless
Yep.
you were faced with this.
Oh, absolutely. And, even I remember one of her medications, it had to be compounded, and that wasn't covered with insurance. So this medication that we had to give her every single night, about twice a month had to have it filled, and that was like $350 each time, and that wasn't covered. And, there were different things like that. One time it was probably, other than day one being the scariest day of Natalie's journey, was probably about 6 or 7 months in. Making a very long story short, we ended up in the ER because I knew she was off. She wasn't reacting to me. She wasn't looking at me. She was just kind of glazed over. I called, we had an emergency hotline. Sorry, there's a bug. That we would call for different things.
Okay.
So I called that hotline, told them what was going on, and basically gave them a heads up, hey, we're heading to the ER. When we got there, her eyes just started moving up and down, up and down, up and down, like uncontrollably. At the time, I didn't know what was going on. They rushed her in, and here she was having seizures. And it was from one of the chemo drugs that she had had the Tuesday before, called methotrexate. She had to have this once a month in her spine. So basically what she had was methotrexate neurotoxicity. So basically, the chemo drug was mixing with the fluids in her brain. And that was, aside from day one, the scariest probably moment that we've had in her whole cancer fight. But I think one of the worst parts about it was, weeks later, we get a bill in the mail, and it was for, oh my goodness, a little over $12,000 that insurance wasn't going to cover. And it was for the neurologist that came in to read her scans because apparently he was out of our network. And here you are in an ER situation. You're not going to say to a doctor coming to help your child,
"Are you in my
are
network?
you in network? I mean, ultimately, my angel of a mother, she had taken over all of our different insurance things at that point because, again, when you're dealing with something like this, the bills, they just keep coming, keep coming, keep coming. And those copays, you're paying, $20 for this person who enters the room,
Right.
$50 for that person that enters the room, $100 for this specialist that enters the room.
It could be $1,000 a day, day after day after day after day.
And not just that, but then you're getting letters and bills from collection agencies, and now you don't know. They're basically, in a way, you're paying twice. Right. So my mom was amazing and was like, put my name on everything, and I'll deal with. This is the last thing that you should be dealing with.
Yeah, and she's
during
right.
this time. Mm-hmm. And she dealt with all that. She got that bill cut down to like nothing.
Oh.
But not every family has that. I mean, I've known families where you've had a single mom who now has to leave her work to take care of her kids, but now
one income, and now it's gone.
100%.
Right.
So the fact that we did have the network that we had of family and friends to carry us through everything, that's what got us through everything. But not everybody has that. So that's why, and even if they do have that, a lot of times they still can't afford what's happening to them. Because there's only so much they can take off of work. And
like in your case, you guys moved. What if people can't move?
Yes.
What if they're already living paycheck to paycheck before this devastating diagnosis?
Yep, absolutely.
What if there's nowhere to go and they're locked into that house or that apartment or that location for whatever reason?
Yep, absolutely.
Everyone has a different situation and a different story.
Yep. So that's why, with the foundation, it's really important to us that in addition to funding research, that we are able to help families as well. And like you were saying in the previous episode, it's really kind of a custom what is needed.
Right. Yeah. You guys really get entrenched in each family, and they become an infinite love family forever.
Literally forever. I mean, a lot of my kids who have been in remission for years, I still keep in touch with them. I keep in touch with their families. I mean, we've gotten so close with some of these families that, I used to be able to take some of them to doctor's appointments, because it's just, I feel like cancer is one of those lonely diseases. I can't speak for adults, but even though you have wonderful family and wonderful friends, unless they're going through that exact thing,
nobody knows.
It's hard to really kind of connect.
Yeah.
So the people that you meet through this childhood cancer community, it's amazing how you go from not knowing one another to, oh my gosh, I feel like I've known you my whole life.
Right.
Like my friend Sue Funk, who she's
Sue.
Actually, she actually joined our Infinite Love board. She had the Hannah Duffy Foundation for 10 years. She just closed it recently. Hannah is her daughter who passed away from brain cancer. And I met Sue, I think it was 2 weeks after Hannah had passed away, and Sue shared her story with me. And I remember I went to her house. It was about 6 o'clock. I left at 3 a.m. And that was my first time meeting her.
And you just felt like you knew each other.
100%.
Forever.
And we refer to each other as soul sisters. And I feel like that's kind of how it works when you're dealing with something like this. So I feel like the same is with most of my childhood cancer families, where they really do become a part of our family. And we'll help them for as long as they need it.
And I do want to point out to everyone that, Infinite Love is 100% a volunteer organization.
Yes.
So when you give, every penny that you give goes to the cause. I'm
Right.
proud to be a monthly donor. It doesn't, you can pick and choose whatever amount you want to give monthly, but monthly donorship for Infinite Love is really important and is really helps to sustain them.
Yes.
So it can be, like you said, it could be $10 a month, it could be 25 a month, it could be 50 a month, but I think we all are fortunate enough to be able to have something to spare.
Right. Right.
So, please consider that. So how did you, in the throes of a devastating diagnosis, decide to start a foundation to now you're a mother whose daughter is fighting this and the whole family is involved, right? You're all suffering on one level or another. How do you take that and start a foundation?
I mean, I didn't actually start the foundation as far as making it official with a 501c3 until years later, but the fundraising did begin, I want to say about 7 or 8 months into her treatment. For me, and I know a lot of parents feel the same way, you just feel completely helpless. I remember there were many times Natalie, and again, she was 3 years old, and, it would take two nurses to hold her down when they would have to like access her port in the beginning. And she would yell for me to help her. And to try to explain to a 3-year-old that they are helping her, even when they're hurting her, is tough. And so as a parent, you feel completely helpless in your child's fight. It's all out of your control. There's nothing you can do to make this better. So for me, diving into everything childhood cancer was making me feel more empowered. So I just remember being up for, oh God, hours and hours in Natalie's hospital room, just looking online, everything I could learn about childhood cancer. And the more and more I was learning, like the angrier I was getting, because I just didn't understand how here you have the #1 disease killer of kids, and yet I'm learning at the same time how completely underfunded research is. And the fact that a lot of the treatments for these kids are completely archaic, decades
Antiquated.
old.
Yeah.
A lot of times people think, oh, but whatever they're doing for adults, it'll get to the kids. It doesn't work that way because kids' bodies metabolize everything completely different. They're not just little adults, they're still growing.
Right.
So the research for them needs to be different. It's just not a matter of, oh, let's take this drug and
just cut the dose.
It doesn't work
like that.
No.
Yeah.
And because of that, these kids are being given treatments that are over 25 years old, and that's just ridiculous.
Right. And then sometimes the treatments can either be fatal
Yes.
or cause secondary cancers or secondary lifelong health problems if they do survive.
Yeah, I mean, there was a local boy who passed away not from cancer. He was cancer-free when he passed away. It was from the treatment. And no parent should have to deal with that.
No, that's inexcusable.
Absolutely. So that's kind of how all this started. So I remember talking to my husband, Dan, thinking, oh man, I think at the time on Natalie's Facebook page, it was Infinite Love for Natalie Grace. That's how I was kind of informing friends and family about what was going on with her, how we were kind of educating people about childhood cancer along the way. And I said, if I got like $1 from every one of her followers, and at the time I think she had like 7,000 followers, I'm like, that'd be so awesome. Maybe we can raise like $10,000 for research. It'd be so cool. So I was like, what the heck? Let's try it. So I got a P.O. box. I got a bank account because I didn't want it anywhere near our personal money. And I literally just with the marker wrote on a piece of construction paper, will you send us $1 for childhood cancer research? Took a picture of Natalie and I holding that sign and posted it. And I remember I went to pick up Hannah at daycare, got home, and that quickly it had gone completely viral. I mean, of course, you always get the people in there who are like, this is a scam.
Of course, right.
And, I can't blame them. You don't know what's real, what's not. But thankfully, for the most part, 99% of the people believed what we were doing.
Right.
And, when I saw the speed it was picking up, and the girls would get so excited checking that P.O. box.
Right.
So we'd open the door and it would just be stuffed with envelopes and these letters were coming from all over the country and eventually from all over the world. And the notes everybody was sending were just so beautiful. And it was everything from kids emptying their piggy banks
Oh my gosh.
to companies writing checks to, we had a picture of firefighters in Atlanta passing their hats and they're all holding the flyers. It was pretty remarkable. And we realized, oh, wow, this is really picking up steam. So that was about April of 2013. And I was like, you know what? Let's see how much we can raise by Natalie's birthday in September, because September is also Childhood Cancer Awareness Month.
Okay.
So I kept upping the goal as I was seeing the funds coming in.
Right.
And
so what did you end up in 5 months?
We ended up with $110,000.
It's unbelievable.
And this is while Natalie was in treatment and while we were selling our home. And
amazing. Oh my gosh.
I mean, people were so generous and they just kind of wrapped themselves around us. And I mean, that was a big chunk of what got us through, because those first 10 months were the worst of it.
And it even gave Natalie and your other beautiful daughter, Hannah, something else to focus on besides this horrific fight that you were all entrenched in, right? So it's like they had a little glimmer to each day, checking that PO box and looking at the numbers. And that's amazing.
No, it was great. And then like once that one happened, I was like, oh, we got to do this again. And we did. The following year, we raised $164,000. And then the year after that was when Infinite Love started becoming what it was. Because at that rate, Natalie had just finished her treatment. I was like, this page has never been just about Natalie. We've always talked about other kids. We've always talked about Infinite Love, childhood cancer as a whole. So I was like, we need to change the name. And that's when we changed it to Infinite Love for Kids Fighting Cancer. And from there, it just grew. I started meeting amazing people like Rachel Kanapka, who's our VP. She has been a partner of Infinite Love since, I think, the 3rd year. And she's a huge reason why we had a lot of growth as well. Just having a partner in crime to throw events together, not just Rachel. We've had other people step up and join the team, and they're with us for years. I always like people to know that, because this is not, as a business owner, you're often the face of what the company is. But
no foundation and no business is a one-man show.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I mean, at this point, Infinite Love has given about $2.3 million in research.
$2.3 million in research. That's incredible.
Thank you.
It's incredible.
But again, was not a sole.
Right. This is not a sole effort.
No.
Not possible, right?
The people that have volunteered for us over the years have all come in to our lives and into our foundation for a reason and a purpose. And none of what we have done would have been possible without them at all. Honest to God, we're so grateful for people who come in and they're just like, I want to help. Hey, and this is, you have a gala, you have this event. I'm really good at securing baskets, or I can do this. And, this just happened with Pocketbook Bingo.
They just sponsored a Pocketbook Bingo event, which raised over $32,000 in one night, right?
Yep.
And then you have the Tutu Trot, which goes in June of every year. And what did the Tutu Trot raise this year?
That one raised $100, and I want to say it was like $15,000. And that was for the CBTN, Children's Brain Tumor Network, that's run out of the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. Yeah.
So to date, over $2.2 million.
Yep,
is that correct?
2.3, I believe.
$2.3 million to date has been raised by Infinite Love for Kids Fighting Cancer. Please visit their website at Infinite Love for
InfiniteLoveForKids.org.
Yep. And please look at their website. Please consider becoming a monthly donor. And if you can't become a monthly donor, please consider donating to this most incredible cause.
Thank
Andrea,
you so much.
Thank you so much for being here.
I love you. I love you too, girl. I appreciate you.